when you learn Shulchan Aruch, this is very important to know. I've spoken about this before. The art of learning halakha. You don't just read a book and walk away with the rules. The potential for disastrous interpretations of halakha are numerous. There's a large potential for this. The people can read and become obsessive, compulsive over keeping halakha, every nitty detail. They say the halachot are actually mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, people ignore, but the ones they find in the footnotes that nobody actually keeps, those are the ones they care about. It's the world of halakha that, out of a desire to be, the word they use in English is scrupulous. Medakdek b'mitzvot. The Rambam warns us that too much scrupulousness can actually end up to being a b'chil Hashem. Can actually bring about the opposite desired effect.
Rav Kook talked about that too.
This is a common theme by those who are straight leaders of Am Yisrael.
But don't you think some of that's like an art scroll thing? Like when people get introduced to Torah books and halachic books through, it's like that word stringent comes in. It's so good to be stringent with this and stringent with that, and be careful with this.
Yeah, I'm not from the. Though sometimes I'll throw out a comment here or there, but I'm not from the art scroll bashers. I'll tell you what I mean. I believe art scroll has done a lot of good to Jewish people by allowing access to classic texts. I believe that, and art scroll is not just guilty about this, but many of the English halakha books, and today unfortunately even the Hebrew ones, are written by contemporary authors instead of translating classics like the Shulchan Aruch. Instead of translating classics and allowing people to read from the sources, the different opinions and the different discussions, they've instead chosen to make all kinds of collections of halachot, works that are... So when I wrote my book, I didn't want it to be a collection of do's and don'ts, but rather I want to take you back to the source, like I would study halakha. I will tell you my feelings at the end for Soladim, for Shkonzim, for everybody, for nobody. But ultimately you know also all the sources to make an educated decision. That style of writing books in halakha has not reached the English-speaking community. There are a few Talmidei Chachamim that wrote books in Hebrew like that, and they have now become... They're slowly becoming translated by Jewish law. In America, there's a few. One I could recommend is a book called Pnei Halakha by Rabbi Yonatan. And this work is incredible. And they've translated, to the best of my knowledge, at least 2 or 3 volumes from Hebrew into English. They're about 11, 13, something like that. And Pnei Halakha, they have one on women's prayer and one on Pesach. I believe there's another one already out, but don't hold me to it. And you can get these books through Koren Publishers. And they're incredible. Rav Melamed basically put together a modern day Bet Yosef. He'll take you back to the Talmud and walk you down through the sources up to what people do today. Like every work of halakha, the author of the work always puts their imprint on it. Everything is interpretation. But what didn't used to happen was what we have today. I have a brother-in-law who is one of the most knowledgeable Torah scholars I've ever met in my years of traveling through yeshiva. You know how it works? They say that you can't be a prophet in your own city. So I think in our family, not everybody appreciates how big of a Torah scholar he is, because he's the brother-in-law, he's not the rabbi. Outside of his circles, he has many fans, many followers, many students. In my discussions of halakha with him, I often come to a sad conclusion that he knows a lot, but lacks the confidence to decide which halakha to follow through with. And then he does what Zev mentioned. Well, there's this opinion, and there's that opinion, and it's so much better just to be stringent. But it isn't better to be stringent. See what bracha do you make on a chocolate-covered raisin? Well, some say you make shakol, some say you make ha'etz, some say you make this, some say you make that. Others will tell you it's just best to eat an apple for ha'etz, drink a glass of water for shakol, and you solve the problem. You don't have to make a blessing. You didn't solve the problem. You didn't give me an answer. You just avoided the question. We lack confidence in the world of psak. You even have great rabbis who lack confidence in the world of psak. And when you go through a work like this, there are a lot of details in Hilchot Tzitzit. A good example is what we learned last night. When one goes to the bathroom, that their tzitzit shouldn't be showing in the bathroom. I don't know Talmidei Chachamim who act like this. And even if I did, they would be in the minority. It's not something that even the Shulchan Aruch mentions. The Shulchan Aruch just mentions you can go into the bathroom with your tzitzit. Why did so many people around the table yesterday, even just for a brief moment, entertain the thought, then maybe it's a good idea to follow that strict opinion of making sure my tziziyot don't show. It's in our human nature to want to go all the way. But that's not correct, necessarily. And we're going to learn some halachot tonight also, and you have to know, if Maran doesn't mention them, the Ramah doesn't mention them, the other works that do mention them are not as authoritative as the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. I have an absolute loyalty to Shulchan Aruch. I wish the Ashkenazi community had absolute loyalty to the Ramah. Not Shulchan Aruch, but to the Ramah. At the very least, to say he is the absolute decisive of law. It doesn't work that way. Just like today in the Sephardic community, you have already people who pretend to be loyal to Shulchan Aruch, and they're not really loyal to Shulchan Aruch. It would be wise to stick with classic sources in all forms of study, in all places that you study, but especially in Jewish texts, especially in Halakha, because you'll end up doing things in this generation. You'll see chumrot that people have that no generation before us ever cared about those things. None. Nobody. There's nobody at this table whose great-great-grandfather didn't eat bread that was baked by a non-Jew, unless your great-grandfather was the Arizal. The Arizal had a die-hard line. He didn't eat bread baked by non-Jews. Halakha already a long time ago rescinded this prohibition on the Jewish people. All of our grandparents ate this. This concept that Pas Yisrael has already become such a big deal. It's almost the standard. By the way, while Yashan is not a biblical prohibition, a rabbinic prohibition that nobody even keeps, including the rabbis who created it, Pat Yisrael, somehow that's become the thing. It's that I won't eat that cookie if it's not Pat Yisrael. But no, everybody ate that cookie once upon a time. So why are we so special in this generation? I'll tell you what, this generation, we have more Jews who intermarry than any other generation before. In this generation, we have more people running away to Christianity than we ever had before. And we have a lot of wonderful things in this generation. We're not the generation that's holier than every generation before us. And I don't think that it's fitting to ignore classic Jewish practice and start coming up with our own inventions. I wouldn't blame Art Scroll for this. I just think that there are some genres of writing that push people towards this and some that don't. It's all based on the author who wrote the book. And just be wary. You know, there's a book of the Mishnah Berurah. They have it in English now. They have a second edition. It went from having no English editions to having one famous English edition, and now there's a second English edition.
It's very hard to study without a teacher, though.
It's true, but this is a classic work. Yeah, so it's a $400 set. But it's a classic. This is Shulchan Aruch with a commentary of the Chavetz Chaim. You'll read things, learn things you never knew before. It's better to rely on that than on some other book that somebody wrote. Even on my book. Better not to rely on my book. Better to learn the Rambam for yourself, and Shulchan Aruch for yourself, and Poskim for yourself.
I had a friend like 35 years ago who read in the Talmud, an English translation, that one Torah scholar, his tefillin strap turned over once and his teeth turned black from it. So it happened to him, accidentally, so he decided to fast, and punish himself for allowing that to happen. But what I learned is that the interpretation is that it meant that to allow himself to engage in an argument, a halachic argument to an extreme, is what that meant.
Somebody once came to Rabbi Yitzchak Abadi and asked him a question. Rabbi, what is your opinion on this halakha? And Rabbi Abadi said, well, my opinion is not relevant. I'm not your rabbi. Who's your rabbi?
Very good answer.
And he said, I don't have a rabbi. He says, here's what you should do. Go home, do vidui. Confess your sin that you don't have a rabbi. Go look for a rabbi and ask him this question. And in our tradition, we've in our love of democracy, we've gotten rid of this. Have a person, your go-to source, who helps you understand text that you're struggling with. In that situation, it's a classic case of there was a lack of rabbinic guidance, or even if there was rabbinic guidance, of competent rabbinic guidance, who could have walked them through that understanding of halakha. All right, let's learn inside. On page 397, in the middle of the page. Not 397, 399 in the bottom of the page.
Chet?
Chet.
Mutar
We're going to talk now about sleeping in the talit and laundering our talit in a non-Jewish laundromat. Mutar lishkav lishon. A person is allowed to lay down and sleep. Lishkav, to lay. Lishon, to sleep. Ksha talit alav. So long, even if your talit is on you. Ben bayom, whether in the daytime, uven balayla, or at night. Maran didn't say this though. What did Maran say? Maran said on page 397, a person can enter the bathroom with his tzitzit. The Rama says, some say you shouldn't sleep in your tzitzit. But the custom is to be lenient to sleep in your tzitzit. What about Maran? Where's his opinion?
So when the Rama says that the custom is all the time, does that mean that he's advising not to do it?
When the Rama says something is the custom, he says, he's approving that that's something you could do. Sometimes he'll say it's the custom, and you're not allowed to deviate from the custom. That's when he really believes in the custom. Here he's saying the custom is to be lenient, even though there are those who are strict, and you could probably be strict.
But there's a difference between sleeping in your tzitzit and sleeping in your talit.
What is the wording we use here? We're talking here about our talit.
No. Yeah?
Different.
Oh, no.
Right, at this point in where we're reading, we're talking about a talit.
The translation says
katan,
seat in here.
It's
I
a
just-
mum gadol.
Is certainly permitted to sleep with seat.
The Rama doesn't say, the Rama just says,
It's specific hatalit here. Mutar l'sharvei lash.
basically
Lishon
we're
shehatalit.
we're saying talit and tzitzit are different from each other. In which regard?
Well, we have talit katan, and
Yeah.
So what makes them different though? We mentioned this last night. What makes them different?
one you wear all day and one you don't.
When you wear for just per.
So we'll give that one a little bit of extra preference, which is why there's the next line. The next line says, "We find especially yesh la'akel b'zeh b'talit katan lovshim tachat hamalbushim." This is especially true for your small tzitzit that you wear, because definitely that one you could sleep in. The question only arose regarding the big one. The small one, it wasn't a question about. It's not accurate, by the way. There are rabbis who say even in the small ones you shouldn't sleep.
But there's also a difference of intention, right? In other words, if you're doing your tefillah and you had your talit done, but you fell asleep, but if you say, well, I need an extra blanket, and you put your talit over you, that's a different
Well,
use
that
of the
what
time.
what would that be? That would be a discussion of using a talit perhaps for a disgraceful purpose. You could argue a talit that was meant to cover with.
Well, if you're wearing like a poncho, as we discussed yesterday.
Also, your regular talit. It's made to cover yourself with.
But in tefillah, it's not meant to be a garment.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, the one we use in the shul. I don't know. It's hard to look back to generations before how we know that people wore tefillin all day. But talesim,
So
talitot that they
let's
prayed
look at
in.
let's look at the bottom here. See the bottom right footnote. Lamed Vav.
The Lamed Vav goes.
Ayen B'Orchot Chaim. Look in the book called Orchot Chaim. B'Shem Harav Rabbeinu Asher. The name of Rabbeinu Asher was a Rishon. Shekatav Shenahagu. The custom is Shelo Lishkav B'Talit Sheish Bo Tzitziot.
To not.
Not to sleep in a talit that has tzitziot on it. V'chen Ketav HaKolbo. And the Kolbo says the same thing. We're learning the Shulchan Aruch. Who was the Shulchan Aruch written for?
All Jews.
The average person.
Correct. Maran had a tour written by the two, Rabbeinu Asher's son, Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Asher. The tour. Maran wrote a commentary on the tour called Bet Yosef. It's not news to you guys. There's a book before the Shulchan Aruch that set up the order of the Shulchan Aruch. This was written by the two. The two had a commentary called the Bet Yosef. Both Maran and the Ramah have a commentary in this book. Maran wrote that book for scholars to study halakha from. It goes to the Gemarot, it goes to the Mishnah, it goes to the Psukim, it goes to the Rishonim, the Achronim. Not really Achronim, because Maran himself was perhaps the Rishon. The Shulchan Aruch was written as a kitzur, as a condensed version of his Bet Yosef. He wrote it originally in 30 sections, so that every man, woman, and child, that's what he writes, could study this book, the whole Shulchan Aruch in its entirety, once a month.
Wow.
The whole book once a month.
This many volumes.
That's going to take a lot of time.
As the generations dwindled, went down in our understanding of Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch became the book that we study with all the commentaries on it, and only the real scholars get back to the Torah Bet Yosef. There was a prohibition put out by the rabbis of studying Shulchan Aruch and not studying the Bet Yosef first. That any rabbi who rules just from the Shulchan Aruch without looking at the Bet Yosef is nothing but a mistaken individual. Because how could you reach Maran's real opinion if you didn't study his real opinion? You're just studying his abridged version. Some rabbis say that it's changed because the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch essentially walk you through all the opinions that the Bet Yosef mentioned anyways. They just applied those teachings onto the Shulchan Aruch proper. Here's one of those points where there's a conversation that's not in the Shulchan Aruch that Maran assumes that you know because of course you read his Bet Yosef. Maran brings down these opinions that you should not sleep in the tzitzit. Huvau beBet Yosef was quoted already in the Bet Yosef. The Katav Zen Maran writes about this the following words: "V'lo ra'inu, we never saw; v'lo shamanu, and we never heard. Mish shehikpid bazeh me'olam, we never in our life heard of somebody who was particular not to sleep in their talit." Maran says it might be nice that some rabbis wrote it, but this is not a mainstream Jewish opinion.
See no talit, hear no talit.
V'chen pasak harama. The Rama also writes, "V'katav shu kol sheken medin kiseh lebet hakiseh v'sheken na'agu." The Rama says, listen, sleeping in your talit is better than going to the bathroom in your talit.
Going in the bathroom.
Going into the bathroom in your talit, very good.
Yeah.
And so if we allow people to go into the bathroom with the talit, how much more so they could sleep in their talit? That's why the Rama says the custom is to be lenient. Meaning both Maran and the Rama agree, there is really no room to be so stringent about this, sleeping in your talit. Now, what is the final hammer blow? The final hammer blow here is the opinion of the Mekubalim. So here come the Kabbalists. And the Arizal has an opinion, and this opinion is as follows. Uladat Rabbeinu HaArizal. According to the opinion of our Rabbi the Arizal, we're back in the middle of the page of 399, we're turning to 400. The Rabboteinu HaMekubalim, and our Rabbi is the Kabbalists on page 400. Adraba, quite to the contrary. Ra'ui la'adam shisha'er levush b'talit katan b'zman she'yashen. It's proper for a person to leave his tzitzit on while he's sleeping. V'afilu b'layla, especially at night. V'lo yisirenu ma'alav, and the only time a person should ever remove his tzitzit, k'shenichnas lechotz gufo, when it comes to wash his body. Only time to take off one's tzitzit in the shower, in the mikveh, in the swimming pool. The rest of the time, a person should wear tzitzit all around the clock.
But we just read an opinion that no one ever heard or saw of someone who slept in their tzitzit.
Other way around. No one ever heard of someone who didn't sleep,
Didn't?
who held it was
I
prohibited,
thought you said did sleep.
did not. Very good.
So it appears that there's to be strict, there's two views of looking at this.
Explain.
Because you could be, by sleeping in your tzitzit, you could be demeaning it.
According to one opinion.
Yeah, according to one opinion, whereas the other opinion is that it's always good to wear a tzitzit no matter what you're doing, except going into the bathroom.
Very good. So now, I want to be strict. Which way do you go? It really depends who you want to be strict like.
Yeah.
Inevitably, being strict like one opinion will make you lenient like another opinion. It's a classic problem over here. This is rarely do you see this, though, as glaringly obvious as right now. Our rabbis always tell us that being strict in one regard will always lean you to being lenient in another regard.
Hey,
Um,
good aim.
Just a little bit.
But
Thanks.
but
Members of the Tea Party.
here, this seems to be a common Jewish practice, by the way, to follow that reason, at least today. Let's read to you the footnote on page.
So you're saying that there's a connection between a leniency one area overlaps with a strictness in another, and there's like
In
a
both
lattice-
directions, like a
yeah.
double-edged sword.
It's almost like a network of connected together.
Kind of at this
of it.
point, you have to decide. And it's not like you could say, you know, I'm not a Kabbalist. I'm going to go with the poskim. Because the poskim are split here as to whether or not you should or should not. And Maran himself and the Ramah say that the custom is not to be particular about not sleeping with your tzitzit. And therefore, at the very least, you wouldn't hold that it's prohibited. To do it, that's your own decision, but to hold it's prohibited. Let's read the footnote on page 400. What is that Rizal's reasoning?
Which footnote?
On page 400 of the right, the first one on the right, Lamed Chet, in Rashi's
Thank
script.
you.
Ken mevo'ar b'Shaar Kavanot.
Shaar Kavanot.
This is explained in the Shaar Kavanot. Who wrote the Shaar Kavanot?
The Arizal, right?
Rabbi Chaim Vital, and the name of the
Oh.
Rabbi Vital didn't write any books. Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote all of his books for him.
And this one I hold from Rabbi Chaim Vital.
Yes, but we read them as if the Arizal said in the Shaar Kavanot. You have to understand how you have people who could study by another Talmid Chacham for 40 years and never, in the words of Chazal, lo yardu l'sof dato. They never reached the depths of his way of thinking. They learned by him, they heard a lot from him, but they didn't step into those shoes ever. And then you have Talmid Chachamim who spent a very short amount of time by these tzaddikim, and they became the prime disciple. For example, there's a famous Hasidic Rebbe called Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen of Rav Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. Heard of him?
That's my grandfather.
Rav Tzadok HaKohen is like I would call him like a radical Kabbalist, like a Kabbalist on steroids. I don't know how to. You read his books, and you're lucky if you even are able to translate the things that he's actually saying.
You're not talking about the Pishta Yid,
No,
who was the seer of Lublin.
no, that's the Choseh of Lublin, and that's not him either. The Yid HaKadosh, the holy Jew, is a student of the Choseh of Lublin who broke away from Lublin because the Choseh appointed his son as the following leader, and he didn't believe that Hasidic leadership should be a dynasty of families,
Interesting.
rather of students. It's the exact opposite of what you know today. And that's who broke away into, who came out of there? The Yid HaKadosh left, the Ger Rebbes, the Chidush Harim, all the Chassidus Gur, Ger, they come from there. Kotsk, the Kotsker Rebbe, he's from that lineage. You have the Rav Simcha Bunim of Peshischa, he comes from that lineage. These are all Rebbes that broke away from me. They were revolutionary, but they considered themselves the originals because they didn't become establishmentized. It's hard to turn Kotsk into an establishment or Peshischa into an establishment. It's very important to learn Jewish history. I feel very often I quote rabbis and like people don't know, like, did he live yesterday? Did he live 2,000 years ago? Like, where is he? Maybe one day we should push common names that are studied. I always try when I quote a rabbi to tell you a little more about him. That way you remember. It would be wise if you sometimes jotted them down. That way you'll remember next time who they were. When I learned in Baltimore, I could think that one rabbi was the brother of the other rabbi, and really they lived 1,000 years apart. They never spoke about who each rabbi was. When I went to Israel, Harav Peretz never let us quote a rabbi before someone told us at the table who he was, or what he did, or when he lived, and it transformed the way you look at any kind of Jewish learning. With Rav Tzadok HaKohen, he was a Litvak. He was actually an opponent of the Hasidic movement. And he at some point in his life became a Chassid. And a year later, he already started writing his own books of Chassidut that are widely accepted in the Hasidic circles. Which means it took him less than a year to already become so fully absorbed in his rabbi's way of thinking that he was already able to put out writings of his own on Chassidut.
Boy.
Rav Chaim Vital, the prime disciple of the Arizal, if I remember my math correctly, he studied by the Arizal between 2.5 and 3.5 years. The Arizal passed away very shortly after he met him. And he is the only student. The Arizal said that he only came to this world to teach Rabbi Chaim Vital Torah. Even though he had many other students that were with him much longer.
How long did Rav Chaim Vital live?
I don't have that exact answer for you.
Because the Arizal died young, right?
Very young. And Rav Chaim Vital was the only student that was given permission by the Arizal to write down his teachings. Imagine like the newbie walks into class and he becomes the prized disciple. And you don't hear jealousy. There's no split-ups of the students of the Arizal. They all viewed him as Rav Chaim Vital. It doesn't always It's not always I studied by him for 1,000 years and I became his student. Sometimes it's a short amount of time that a person is there. You take a lot.
It seems that that type of transmission is very rare now.
It is very rare.
You know, maybe in the people, you know, maybe there aren't teachers at the level of the Arizal per se, but like the, you know, for example, the type of training you got is very unusual.
It is, and it's also hard to. I think the word would be just quantify. Other people have it's a degree or it's a belonging to some circle or to some organization or to some. By us, it's a matter of it's a rabbi and a student. If you're a student that has no rabbi, you can have all the degrees in the world, but where are you pulling your information from? Where did it come from? Through which channel did it pass through? But that's not the style, and it's a Western way of studying in the first place. Now you go to university, you study by professors. How many people keep up with their professors from university? I got my degree. I don't need them anymore.
Right.
But that's not the way it worked. Not in our world. In our world, the degree was just the first step. What is a smicha? Smicha just means that my rabbi allowed me to rule when he is not present. That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that I never call back. You never have your whole transition is dependent on that connection. Some rabbis are even more. Some rabbis are the direct teachers of a whole generation. Shulchan Aruch says that if a rabbi passes away, who is a teacher of many people, for example, Chama Yosef, Rabbi Yashiv, when they pass, one has to rip their shirt on hearing this news. One rips like a person for their parent, God forbid, or for their rabbi, because that is the teacher of that generation, or one of the teachers of the generation. How much more so a direct rabbi? Unfortunately, the Jewish world doesn't work like it should, and there are a lot of problems with the Jewish world not working like it should. We end up having problems that didn't used to happen, and the solutions are out of our hands because we can't fix them, because we messed up the whole system.
We can't make leaders by keeping people down, and by forcing them so strictly to be a standard, not to question or not.
Well, to the contrary, I think that when you're a student of somebody, you do question, because you have the freedom. You're anchored somewhere. You see, if Rav Peretz ever felt the need to reel us in, he would. You know, this one's gone a little too far. Let's pull him back close. It's those who don't have anyone to answer up to that I'm very wary of. Who warranted this? Who allowed you? Who set you on this path?
I'm talking more about more of a mass-produced phenomenon, like a large yeshiva type of thing. Like I studied with somebody in Denver years ago, and he said, well, anytime I'd ask a question, my Rebbe would say, be quiet, just keep learning, kind of thing.
Okay, so we all had such rabbis along our path. I think everybody in this room has met such a rabbi at least once in their life. Not only because they don't have a good answer to give you, that's why they tell you to be quiet. And this style of mass learning also led to a certain style of mass-produced rabbi, which essentially is less competent in areas of halakha. He's not built to be an authority. He's built to be part of a pack, part of a group, and separate him from his group, and you'll see just how well he stands on his own. And it's not the way it's supposed to be. In the olden days, you would get smicha from the Chavetz Chaim. You would be a student of his, and he would send you like Rav Kook to Palestine, and good luck if you ever saw each other again. And you were expected to become a chief rabbi and open up a beit din and be the shochet and a mohel and all on your own.
Because once you plant a seed that continues to grow, your own learning will continue to grow.
Well, that's our expectation, but that style of training is today to get smicha. You could do it online today.
If you get the idea,
it's like we've sold. How much would you value a PhD that somebody did online? Or a degree that somebody got in a university where you just pay enough money, they give it to you after 6 months.
Ashford.
But how many rabbis do we have with the same training? They just got older since they got smicha, so they're a little bit whiter in the beard, a little bit rounder on the sides, and the coat is a little bit longer, so we respect them a little more.
If you just give someone the tools, and they understand the principle of the thing, they can continue to grow and learn. Of course, they should still have contact.
Okay, but that's the hope, and it's the same thing we do. Think for yourself is a good. You also have to have parameters within which you operate. There's a rabbi recently that went on record saying, "Oh, if my rabbi was alive, he would be one of my opponents." I don't know. I wouldn't be so proud. That's what that essentially is saying is that your link to the rabbinic chain would be severed if he was around. That's not something I would brag about. But you never know. Here in Rav Chaim Vital, we treat his words as if the Arizal wrote them. He says the following: "Shetzarich lizaher." A person must be careful. Shelo lahasir me'alav talit katan, not to remove his tzitzit. Lo bayom, not during the day. V'lo balayla, not at night. V'yishkav imo balayla, and he should lay with it at night in his bed. V'yo'il me'od levatel hakochot hachitzonim. And this will help a lot to suppress the external forces that come to attack a person. I'm not a Kabbalist. You understand external forces in whichever way you want to understand external forces. Ve'en zman shetzarich la'asir oto ma'alav. There's no time that one needs to remove it. Ela b'knisato levet ha'merchatz. Only when they enter into a shower, literally getting wet, they're taking it off. It says here later on that the Arizal himself used to sleep in the tzitzit. The same tzitzit he wore in the day, the same tzitzit he wore at night. He didn't have like a sleeping tzitzit and a wearing tzitzit. It was the same tzitzit. Maybe you would say that he didn't disrespect his daytime tzitzit. He had special tzitzit which were made to sleep in. No, the Arizal said that you could sleep in your tzitzit. Not only could you, but you should. We're adults in this room. It's interesting to note that the Mekubalim have a hard time with this. On one hand, the Kabbalists demand from, unlike the Poskim demand from a husband and wife when they're together, legalot tefach ulechasot tefachim, to uncover one tefach and to cover up 2 tefachim, meaning to cover more than they are uncovered. This is the halakha. This is the mode that the Gemara sets forth. Shulchan Aruch also. The Mekubalim, to the contrary, the Mekubalim being together is all about a yichud. It's some connection. It's a becoming one, and therefore there cannot be anything that separates between a husband and a wife. It's a direct opposition of halakha. You should know many of the early poskim struggle with Kabbalah were things like this. And the Talmud says something, the Mishnah says something, the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch. All of a sudden, you come and tell us that there's a different understanding here. It almost is heretical in a positive way.
But this doesn't even that. Again, I'm exposing my own ignorance. But doesn't that also reflect back to where it says that a man shall leave his parents and cleave to his wife and become one flesh?
The source of becoming one flesh. The rabbis just say, how far are you going to take becoming one flesh? The Mekubalim then struggle, what do you do with tzitzit? Because the Arizal didn't tell one to take it off in bed. It seems like the consensus among the Mekubalim is to lift one tzitzit to a place which doesn't cause a hifsek, around one's neck, for example. That way they can fulfill both the opinion of the Arizal and the opinion of the Mekubalim in both directions.
So they shouldn't take it off, they should just wear it so it's not in the way.
Exactly. In which case, they're not really wearing it, and one could ask,
Yeah,
so what is one accomplishing by wearing it?
yeah.
These discussions they just go around in circles over and over again. I haven't seen a verdict out on this. According to the Poskim, it's not a question. It's not a question. But according to the Mekubalim, it is a question. All of these have ramifications. According to the Arizal, tzitzit are meant to as some sort of protection against other forces that exist in the world.
Well, negative thought forms. One's own thoughts sometimes. Negative thoughts, anxieties, fears.
Perhaps
Nightmares.
you're going down a Rambam road on Kabbalah, which is the Rambam's understanding of negative spiritual forces to be psychological or mental,
Well, we talked
emotional.
about in the
ills.
introduction to his Pirkei Avot, where he talks about the nature of the malach, the brain, the mind, to manufacture thought forms and
Correct.
so forth.
And
that we
you know
see
there
as
are
demons.
Mekubalim that
Yes.
fall into this category. These are Mekubalim pre-Zohar. Post-Zohar Mekubalim seem to treat external forces as its own entity that are not internal. They're actually external forces that affect a person's internal side. I don't dabble much in this discipline, but you're 2 different ways to approach the same subject.
But it's something that has to be dealt with because we see so many people, God forbid, who are mentally ill, OCDs, all kinds of things, and one has to have some kind of place to stand to deal with it from a
Absolutely.
spiritual point of view.
But just to maybe back up the Kabbalists from a Talmudic perspective, there's a story in the Gemara. I believe we learned it once together. Can I somebody give me a Talmud Menachot over here? The little Talmud. It's in Rashi's script. So someone who's good at reading Rashi's script.
Just after. We'll give him, what's he doing?
So in a way, the Kabbalists are New Age.
This one?
Well, or the
Perfect.
New Age think they're
Thank you.
Kabbalists.
This story I've shared with you before, but it's worthy of repetition any time you study Tzitzit. Amar Rabbi Yonatan. Rabbi Yonatan says, this is Tractate Menachot, page 44a, Mem Dalet. Amar Rabbi Yonatan says, En lecha kol mitzvah kana, there's no mitzvah that's written in the Torah, even a light one, kana, shektuva b'Torah, which is written in the Torah, she'en matan schara b'olam hazeh u'le'olam haba, that one doesn't receive a reward both in this world and in the next world. The Rabbi Yonatan's opinion is one receives reward for mitzvot even in this world. Tsel mal mitzvah tzitzit. Go and learn this teaching out from the mitzvah of tzitzit. Maaseh b'adam echad. There was once a story about a certain man, shaya zahir b'mitzvah tzitzit, who was very careful about the mitzvah of tzitzit. I mean, this was his mitzvah. He always wore tzitzit. He followed the opinions, talit, sleeping, big, small. He did all the things about tzitzit. Shama sheyesh zona b'virkei hayam. He heard there was a certain prostitute who lived out in the islands outside of where he lived.
This has been Doria?
No, this is an anonymous.
This was the famous story of Doria.
Shenotelet daled mod zehuvim bischara, and she charges 400 gold coins for her services. Shiger la 400 zehuvim. He sent her 400 gold coins in advance. There's a person who's very pious. It's tzitziot. He's very careful about tzitziot. V'kamal azman. And he appointed a certain date, an appointment. Kishigia zmano, when it came his time, ba v'yashav al petach. He came and he sat at her, the entrance of her home. Nichnasa shivchata. She's a very wealthy call girl. This is her. She has a business. She's famous. Her servant came, her maidservant. ואמרה לה שזה אותו אדם ששיגר לך ד' מאוד זהובים בא ויושב על הפתח. That man who made the appointment with you, he's here. The story has a lot more to read into it than just what I'm going to read into it. Why did the Talmud even have to say that there was a assistant that came to... These details are seemingly irrelevant. Amra, ייכנס, let him in. נכנס. He entered. הציע לו זין מיטות 6 של כסף ו1 של זהב. She showed him, set before him 6 beds of silver. The silk sheets, there were silver beds, and the top one was the 7th one made out of pure gold. ועליונה של זהב. עלתה וישבה על גבי עליונה כשהיא ערומה. She undressed and climbed up the ladders to get to the top bed. אף הוא עלה לשב ערום כנגדה. So he also undressed and went up to the top of this, of the beds. באו ד' ציציותיו. His 4 tzitziot popped up out of nowhere. He was climbing up a ladder. וטפחו לו על פניו, and they hit him in the face. But what did I learn from here?
He had him on.
He was undressed, he had them on, and he was going to be with his lady. So, I might be a forced reading. I don't think it's so forced. It says that he undressed and she undressed, and he was still wearing a tzitzit. You could say he was holding them in his hand. It could be. But let's...
I thought you're not supposed to wear tzitzit on your skin. I thought you're supposed to have something in between your skin.
It could be that tzitzit, though, these were actually his shirt.
Oh, it could be.
Meaning,
It
you're
could
right.
be,
About
could
our
be, yeah.
tzitzit that are a ritual garment, we treat them as such.
Right.
But his were clothing. It's a good question. Nishmat v'yashav lo al gabei karka. He immediately got shaken up and he went and sat on the floor. V'afi nishmata v'yashva al gabei karka. So, he doesn't want to go up. She also came down and sat next to him on the floor. Amra lo. She told him, I don't know exactly how to pronounce the next word. Gape, gufa, gafa. Gufa shel Romi. It's a swear. She's swearing on Rome. She'eni menichatcha ad shetomar li ma mum ra'ita bi. I will not lay you out of this house until you tell me what blemish you saw in me. What made you leave me and go down to the floor? Nobody's ever done this to her before. Amar la, he tells her, ha'avodah, I swear to you, shelo ra'iti isha yafa kmotech. I never in my life saw a woman as beautiful as you. Ela mitzvah achat tzivanu Adonai Eloheinu. There's one commandment that our God commanded us. V'tzitzit shma, and it's called tzitzit. V'katuv ba, and it says, Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Hashem your God, shte pamim, twice. Ani hu shatid lifara, v'ani hu shatid l'shalem sachar. I am the one who will demand from you to keep the Torah, and I am the one who will give you the reward. Achshav nidmu alai kedalet edim. And all of a sudden I felt like there were 4 witnesses standing against me for the averah that I was about to do. Amra lo, she tells him, Eini menichacha ad shetomar li ma shimcha. I will not leave you until you tell me what your name is. Uma shem ircha, and what the name of your city is. Where do you come from? Uma shem rabcha, and what's the name of your rabbi? So much for being anonymous. Uma shem midrashcha, and what is the name of the yeshiva on which you study? Shata lomed bo Torah, that you're sitting and studying Torah inside. Katav, he wrote it down. V'natan biyadan, he gave it to her. Amda, she got up, v'chilka kol nechasea. She gave away her possessions. Shlish l'machut, a third of her fortune she gave to the Romans. Shlish l'aniyim, a third she gave to the poor people. Ushlish natna biyada, and a third she took for herself. Chutz meotan mitzaot, except for those beds of silver and gold, she didn't want having to do with that. Uvat lebet midrasho shel Rabbi Chia, and she comes to the bet midrash of his rabbi, Rabbi Chia. Amra lo, she says, Rabbi, tzaveh alai v'yasuni gioret. Tell your people, I want to convert to Judaism. I want to be a convert. Amar la, he tells her, Biti, my daughter, what do you come all the way here to become a convert? Shema einayich natat bechad min hatalmidim. Maybe you saw one of the boys in the yeshiva that you want to marry, and that's why you want to convert. What is he asking her?
Are you converting out of true
Are you
conviction?
converting out of
Are
true
you in love
conviction
with
or for an
somebody
ulterior
there?
motive? Those who want to have discussions with us about conversion and to be strict and whether it's proper to convert people who are only coming for another reason, it will do them well to study this piece of Gemara. Hotzia ktav miyada, she took out this note that he gave her in his handwriting. V'natanalon, she gave it to Rabbi Chia. Amar la, he says, L'chi zekir b'mikachech. Go and take your reward. Go take your yeshiva student. They end up converting her. She takes this student. She marries him.
Wait.
The students?
So he's saying, he's testing her motive, but then he says, go and take the man you want.
Yes.
So he's
Well,
saying
it's a
that's enough
reward.
reason
Well,
to
we
do
mentioned
it.
They say it's a reward. She's
Because
also
it's
got a
clear.
reward for not doing an avera.
Yeah.
So he says, go take your prize. We didn't go get him.
So who did take him?
She took the student that came to see her in the island.
So the rabbi
was
knew
a-
she was a,
Yeah,
how did he know?
I guess she was famous. It wasn't.
I see.
It wasn't undercover operations.
It's like, oh, here she is.
Otan mitzaot shitzia lo beisur, those same beds that she offered him in a prohibited fashion, hitzia lo beheter. She was able to offer him in a permitted fashion.
Oh, so she kept the beds. I thought she discarded them.
Maybe not the same beds. It's the rabbi's way of saying that she lived with him, and it's a nicer way to say that than to say she offered him her bed once and it was prohibited, and now she's offering her bed a second time.
And he wanted to get married to her?
Clearly, he says he's never seen as beautiful a woman as her in his life.
Well-
Zeh matan scharo ba'olam hazeh u'le'olam haba. This was his reward in this world and in the next world. Rashi, by the way, says like you. Rashi says that when it says except for those beds, meaning except she didn't give away a third of those beds, she brought those beds with her. That's how Rashi understands it. It literally means that the beds that he was going to use for Esau, they used for Hitel.
He was in the.
Look, listen, this story is a pretty out there story. If everybody wanted to have an Ein Yaakov class, this is a good.
I love it.
It's a good tractate to study.
It's a
this
great
one.
thing.
Yeah.
But first, the moral of this story is an interesting moral. It's a person who goes to do an Isur, and you find that his rabbi doesn't judge him for almost falling. Rather, almost appreciates him for being in such an intense situation and not falling. Which Beit Din today would convert? You know, there's once a guy, he came from, I don't know, Jerusalem, he came to Las Vegas, and there was some girl he almost was with, and instead he said, let's go to Beit Din. They go to the chief rabbi of Las Vegas, and he said, okay, let's convert you. They convert, he does the chuppah, shalom Israel. You never heard of such a story before, because today's world would never have such a story even told. This is recorded in the Gemara. It's meant to tell us
So
something.
it sounds like the women of that profession in those times was a little different than now. There were drug problems, disease problems,
This
people
is
controlling
interesting.
them.
The Rambam mentions that one of the Torah's reasons for prohibiting prostitution, the Rambam says, is to protect the woman who would be used not by the men who they're hired to, but by the Rambam mentioned there will always be people who will rule over
Enslave
these women
them,
and take
right.
their money and enslave them. Says the Rambam, in a functional society, yeah, you're right, you could do whatever you want with your body. Not really, according to the Torah, but the Rambam says that's a logical argument you can't make to that. Well, who are you to tell me what I can do with my body? Rather, the logical argument of the Torah is, I must save you from the inevitable ills of a society in which such a thing exists. And we see this today more than ever. Human trafficking, and there are people that treat other human beings like merchandise. You think slavery was over a long time ago? It's not. It just has a different name today, and it's a different penalties and different offenses. Here, you seem to be as a woman who's working for herself. She has a staff who works for her. She has a shifcha. There's something that her giving the money a third to the Romans must be some kind of connection she has in government places. She's not, doesn't seem to be somebody from the street. This is her, and you find a certain awe of a person who was able to stand up to her. Who would leave such a lifestyle? Once they're in this lifestyle, to get up and walk away and say, I want to become Jewish. I want to be the wife of some Talmid Chacham in Israel, which is an occupied territory in this point. Who would give all that up for this? Must be there was a special neshama. It must be here more depth of story than we're seeing. But from here, I wanted to bring a proof that he didn't take off his tzitzit. In which case, it could be the Mekubalim. They didn't just pull this out of their hat. It's not something that came out of nowhere. That even the poskim might agree. According to the poskim, for sure they would wear tzitzit. But according to the Mekubalim, this is why they were so adamant that even when a person was undressed, they would still keep their tzitzit in this kind of situation. And this might be the very simple definition of the Arizal, which it protects one from negative external forces. This is a case where he was protected literally by his tzitzit from another place. As a rabbi say, Divrei Torah, the words of Torah, Ashirim b'makom acher. They are richer when you put them in context with another piece of Torah that talks about the same thing. This is a classic example of that.
Interesting.
You said that it's a reward for him in this world and the come. What is the same thing about the reward?
He gets his reward of tzitzit. We're being so careful about tzitzit, of course he's going to get the come. And he gets a reward in this world for being this impoverished yeshiva student. He comes out to have the wife that he wanted and all the money that she brought with him, and her. This seems like he won on both ends of the deal. This was, and from here, you know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us that everything in the world that is prohibited, there's a way to have it in a permitted fashion. The basic teaching of Chazal. And you know, I see people. You shouldn't have imitation shrimp. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't like imitation anything. I'm not into the imitation.
It's like
But
fake meat.
it could be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created such a thing for a person to say, you know, I it wasn't so great. It wasn't something so impressive. I had it. It was okay. It was good. A person was able to enjoy something that tasted similar in this world in a way that was permitted. It's, when I went to a pizza store once, there was pizza. It said kosher pizza, and it had pizza with pepperoni on it. I was like, I'm sure I'm in a pizza
Well,
store.
it could have been tofu.
It was tofu
Yeah,
pizza,
yeah.
and they actually
It
put the
looked like
box.
pepperoni.
Yeah, it was like little red. It looked like the advertisements in the
It was
newspaper.
probably like Tempe.
I don't know,
Oh,
Papa John's
yeah,
pizza.
yeah,
This is what it looked like.
Fake and bacon.
It was
Right.
cultured. It was
So-
cultured at Tempe. It was.
And I originally spoke to
soybean.
somebody who many years ago went over from keeping kosher for not keeping kosher to keeping kosher.
Yeah.
And the one thing they really missed was bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon. They tried the tofu bacon. They tried the turkey bacon. All of this didn't work for them. They said that about 3 years ago they discovered there's a kosher company that makes lamb bacon.
Really?
It's lamb that's sliced like bacon, I guess flavored like. Now, why in the world do you want to have a lamb that tastes like a pig? Okay, but they told me that ever since they had this,
It's better.
their Yetzer Hara for bacon went away. It's almost the real deal.
Okay.
Well, I guess you'll all be coming over from the Nova
Yeah.
Or once you know, this is an important thing to know when dealing with the laws of brachot. Those of you who eat healthy, this is not a problem for you. But someone recently brought me a package of mango slices,
Mango.
What?
dried mango slices.
Mango slices.
And they wanted to know which bracha you make on it. And it didn't have a hechsher, and they wanted me to check. So I looked, and I said, you know, I have to tell you something. I eat dried mango, and this doesn't look like a mango. First off, it's fluorescent orange. Yeah, meaning it's not mango
Dyed.
orange. It's like a neon orange. I get,
Yeah.
and the
like
shape of
Japanese
it,
food.
something is off about it. So I flipped over the package. And lo and behold, it is not mango slices. These are pineapple slices. I don't know if pineapple is really cheaper than a mango. They're
It is.
pineapple slices that are sliced to look like mango and food colored neon orange, so they look
Yeah.
like mango.
Yeah.
In which case, the person, now, eat it or not, but the bracha went from being a ha'etz of a mango to a ha'adama of a pineapple. Sometimes the things that you see are not, you live in a world where you really don't know anymore what it is that you're seeing is what you're getting. It's an
You
incredible
gotta
thing.
really watch out.
For the positive and for the negative. It's something
They're
to
probably
have in
exporting those
mind.
to Russia or somewhere, like, what do you guys know the difference between tropical fruits?
Very
Just
good.
enjoy. Yes.
And they have like mango slices and little letters that said in flavored, mango flavored slices. That's what it was. You have here on page 100 one last halakha.
Focus.
Mutar lechabes hatalit etzel koves or koveset goyim. You can give your talit to a non-Jewish male or female launderer. Is that a word?
Yeah, wonder. It's word.
V'chen minhag le'akel b'zeh, and this is the custom to be lenient about it. This is actually the same thing where both Maran and the Ramah said they never saw somebody who didn't do this.
Didn't.
Did not. So do you remember a few pages ago we had this question on page 390. It said you couldn't give your talit to a non-Jew because maybe he'll wear it and dress up like it. Remember we mentioned the terrorist attacks in Tel Aviv, and may God forbid a person. In this situation, it seems like our rabbis weren't worried, and the reason why they weren't worried is because the exception to the rule of selling a talit to a non-Jew is if you're just lending it to him for a very short amount of time. Let's say you're giving it to him as a picadon, tell me, collateral for something. You're just and you're immediately going to go get him money from the bank. You just need to leave something there. You can leave your tzitzit because there's not a sufficient amount of time to do something with it. It seems the same thing here. You're giving it that person to wash. You're going to pick it up a few hours later. There's no worry that it would be used for something improper, and that's why Chachamim allow it here. There are those who restrict about it. Some say that maybe your talit you shouldn't give, but your tzitzit you should give. The first Lubavitch Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi writes in Shulchan Aruch that even by a big talit you can give to a non-Jewish launderer, and use your sechem. That's all that I tell you. Use
So
your
it's interesting because
dry clean. Yeah.
the translation says there are authorities who write that one should not sleep in a talus
Yes.
that has tzitzit, nor should one give one's talus to a Gentile launderer, so that mitzvot should not be disgraced in one's eyes, but the custom is to be lenient regarding sleeping, but nothing lenient about giving it to a Gentile launderer.
You guys just saw what Jack did to us. The Ramah here
Ramah.
says only lenient about sleeping, not about laundering.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's your question.
so that's
your question.
Yeah.
But we didn't say that. And the reason we didn't say that is because the Ramah in the Beit Yosef mentioned also laundering was okay. It seems like an error in the copying text of the Shulchan Aruch that they copied only the first part and not about the second part. Or it's an error over there. In any case, even if it wasn't an error, even the Ramah is quoting somebody who prohibits it. The Ramah himself is giving testimony that the custom over there, the custom was to be lenient about this, even though there are those who prohibit it. And that's why it's a good example. If you look in the Derech Moshe, which is the Ramah's commentary on the Torah, like the Beit Yosef, and the Ramah has a Derech Moshe, in there he writes that by laundering we're also lenient, which he doesn't do in the Shulchan Aruch. This seems to be a flawed text that we have in the Shulchan Aruch. Not in the Shulchan Aruch, but of the Ramah.
It's interesting about that terrorist attack in the dressed in Orthodox garb because number one, it was a treif restaurant in Tel Aviv.
It also wasn't a convincing. I don't know if you.
Yeah, it wasn't very convincing. Number
Looked like a
two,
Purim
and
custom.
number three, this restaurant had been warned over and over again they didn't have adequate security.
And
Three
When was
things.
this, in Haifa?
In
Tel
Tel
Aviv,
Aviv, it
remember-
was a few months ago.
Shem Yishmael, it was
Terrible thing.
we live in a world where Yishmael is doing to us things that they didn't have the audacity to do to the world for thousands of years. They've picked up their head in a way that is unheard of, and one of our greatest ways as a citizen to win over this war, the Yishmaelim pray 5 times a day. You also pray 5 times a day. Counteract their tefillah with your tefillah. The Hashem should say, "Oh, these are my children who pray the most. They're not your children who pray the most. We pray more than them." do Yom Kippur every day. Add in. Make sure you say Kriyat Shema in bed. Make sure you say Tikkun Chatzot, or make sure you say Shema again in the middle of the day. Add in something to make sure you counteract their tefillah. Hashem should listen to the daughter of the wife, and not to the daughter, to the son of the wife, and not to the son of the maidservant.
Oh, right.